Welcome to We Digress with Joy and Jess. Join hosts and longtime friends Joy Simpson and Jess Perry as they tackle the stuff of life the only way they know how, with honesty, faith, and humor. This is We Digress with Joy and Jess.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of We Digress with Joy and Jess. I am Jess.
That would make me Joy. I did have to think about it for a second because it's early for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The time change between us now that we're on different coasts has we have to really think about when we're recording.
Yeah.
Schedules. There's a lot of math.
There's a lot of math involved. And there's a lot of, last week I was kind of okay because for those of you who know, I have fibromyalgia, so a lot of days I take, instead of regular pain pills, I take CBD gummies. I don't care. Judge me if you want to, but it helps me. And I took one, and I usually am super sleepy. But last night I could not get comfortable. So I was sleepy, but uncomfortable, and I couldn't get to sleep. So I didn't go to sleep till after almost 2:30.
Oh no.
So my alarm goes off this morning, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's Friday, recording. I can't just tell the alarm to be quiet. So I close my eyes for 2 more minutes and then I get up.
I feel that.
Yeah, and it's
Lucky
been a
had us
busy
up
week.
At 5:15 this morning for no good reason other than he just thought it was time.
Oh my gosh. Gosh. It's like having a toddler, right?
Except there's no scenario in which this toddler will ever learn to speak the same language that I speak.
Although you should get him that mat thing and start training him how to talk. Those things are cool.
He's pretty smart.
Although I don't know how I feel about my dog telling me he's mad at me because, I didn't give him an extra carrot in his food or something. I don't know. I've seen these TikTok videos where the lady trained her dog to talk. I don't know if you guys have seen this out there, but it's a mat and it has words like no and yes and mama and sister and things like that. And those one I saw, the dog was low-key crying, and then the mom / owner is John, I don't remember the dog's name. What's wrong? And he's I'm sad. He hits the I'm sad button. I'm what? So he hits I'm sad button. And she's I get that you're sad, Toto, but why are you sad? And he's I'm sad. And she's I understand that you're sad, but why are you sad? So then he goes on and he's something about his sister. So the toddler that's in the house pissed him off. I was just what? But hey, I'd rather you tell me on a mat than me going, what's wrong? Puka-po?
Right?
What's happening?
There's a couple.
Mind you, I don't have a dog, guys.
Right. On TikTok, there's Bunny, the dog Bunny, and she's the dog's name standard is Bunny. Poodle.
That person's very ironic.
Yes. Okay. So, and then and she's super wholesome, and the mom's trying to teach her to talk, and she's super great, and she has friends, and she goes on playdates. It's adorable. And there's another one that's a little small
playdates.
Yeah, I know, right? There's a little small yappy dog, and their buttons that they have, they're the easy buttons, the Staples that was easy button.
Mm-hmm.
They're easy buttons, but they have a voice that's programmed into it, and they've programmed spicier language into this dog's buttons. And so, the dog will call the mom a not nice name, which I don't condone bad words, but that's funny. It's just really funny.
The fact that you can teach a dog to cuss is quite interesting to me. I don't know. If Dempsey were still alive, but so for those of you guys know, I would always house sit and dog sit for my uncle and my aunt. And I had Dempsey and Phoebe. Dempsey passed away about a month or so ago, but they did get a new dog already, Milo.
Aww.
He's actually an English bulldog like Phoebe. So they'll be, but Dempsey, if he was alive, that would be funnier because Phoebe's lazy. She just likes to eat and she's fat. She doesn't really care about anybody or anything other than licking you. I haven't met Milo yet, so we'll see. But Dempsey would have been I'm sure he would have had a lot of things to say. And if cuss words were on there, knowing my family, they would be. It would have been hilarious. Rest in peace, Dempsey. He was a great dog. I love that dog. He was crazy, but he made an appearance, I think, on last season.
Yes.
He made an
Just-
appearance. You know, he was trying to figure out what I was doing and who I was talking to, and I was like, I'm okay.
Right? I hope you guys could not just hear that, because speaking of dogs, I'm pretty sure my dog just tooted.
I did not hear it.
Okay, well.
So I feel sorry for your nostrils more than anything.
Well, I'm wondering because
dog toots are lethal.
Oh man, Walter, my old dog, my last dog, sweet little Walter, when he was a puppy, he could clear a room. Oh my gosh. And they were silent but deadly too. Like it would just be like a.
Yeah, I mean, humans are terrible at that too, but dog ones are like, I've almost passed out from dog toots.
Yeah.
Like, really badly.
Yeah, this was
Guys,
not
this
good.
isn't what this episode's about, but you know, we have to ease into things in life, and this is funny to me. So,
well, Mr. Lucky got a pup cup today, and I'm wondering if that was not good for him.
Oh,
yeah,
dairy.
Maybe, I don't know.
He might be a little lactose intolerant.
Maybe. But yeah, he got a pup cup today. It was
Too
very
bad
exciting.
He doesn't have a mat to tell you he's lactose intolerant. He's like,
he was on a little bit of a sugar high though afterwards, for sure. He was just like,
oh my
crazy.
Gosh, that is so funny. I don't know. It's been a busy week, so you guys, the way I'm tired right now, I don't know what's gonna come out of my mouth. I'm gonna just be honest with you.
Can you hear that roar?
No,
overhead?
I can't hear it.
Okay, good. All right. The Air Force base that's near us is doing practices.
Oh,
and
wow.
All week long, just nonstop all day, just like the roar of jets literally overhead. So
gosh.
I'm glad that hopefully you're not hearing that.
That would be a bit annoying to a degree. Like, okay, but then you're like, I'm going to lay down now, or I'm going to take a nap, and you got...
It's not so bad. It's okay. Like, the weird one was we had thunderstorms pretty bad Tuesday night, I want to say it was. And I couldn't, at first, like, I didn't realize that there was thunderstorms, because I was so used to hearing the jets overhead all day that all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, that's a different roar. Like, it's a different rumble. Then I was like, oh, John, be careful on the way home. There's like rain.
Right. Seriously. Rain like you're not used to rain. Yeah.
Yeah, we get it. We're in the season where we're going to get it pretty much most days in the afternoon.
LA probably needs some rain, but it hasn't rained in about a month or so.
Yeah. It's 90 today and like humid, like super humid. So summer's
it's only
here.
I think it'll be in the upper 70s today, possibly in California or Southern California, not all of California. Because as we all know, Northern California can either be extremely hot or extremely cold, depending on what part of Northern California you're in.
It's like 2 different states.
It's literally like going to 2 different states. Like that time we drove so we were in San Francisco. No, we were in Sacramento for a church convention thing. My grandmother was being honored for something, so we went up. So my mom's like, let's just take the day and drive to San Francisco. It's only a few hours from Sacramento, right? So I think I'm tough. You all know, if you know me in person, I'm always hot. Although in my 40s, I'm not as hot as I used to be. Like, I experience cold now, and it's weird for me to be cold. Like, I actually need a jacket, and I'm like, huh? This is weird. I know. Strange. But I was like, no, I'll be fine, because it was 105 in Sacramento. I'm thinking, it's not that far. It's going to be, we checked the weather, it was only going to be like 80 something. But 80 something in San Francisco on the wharf is freezing, okay? It is not hot. It is not warm. It is extremely breezy and very cold. I had to wear my mom's jacket and buy a hoodie in like one of those like tourist trap type spots, because I was freezing. This was years ago. I was still like either early college, high school, something like that. But yeah, so it's definitely like going to 2 different states.
It is.
Because 75 in San Francisco and 75 in LA are 2 different 75s. Way different.
Well, and 75 out here is not the same as 75 back in California. So like 75 in Savannah, I swear the sun is hotter out here. Like it is more intense. The sun is
Like
more
Jesus
intense out
turned the
here.
heat up just a little bit more out there.
He did. He was like, yeah, it is more intense. So like in California, if it were in the 60s, 1000% I would always have a sweatshirt or a jacket or something. If it's sunny out here in the 60s, no, because I will sweat my face off. Like, I don't know what it is. It's really weird. I think it's because the humidity in the air. I think it makes it warmer.
So when I come in September, like, I don't even know how to pack. We'll figure that out.
September, I'm trying to think. We haven't been here in September.
You haven't been there in September yet.
We've been here in August.
November. Yeah.
We've been here in August, and we've been here in May.
Most places where it's generally hot in like the August, July times, September can be warm, but that's only because like I'm used to California ending in summers at mid-September, sometimes early October, and it's like randomly 100 degrees.
Right.
But then again, I also live in Southern California where that can happen in the middle of January, so who knows?
Right. And it's kind of that same way here. I think it's just you got to see what the weather's doing, because that's definitely hurricane season in September. So
I would be coming in hurricane season.
Well, but for the most part, and that's one of the reasons why we moved where we did, like Savannah doesn't generally get hit by hurricanes. We'll get a lot of tropical storms. We were here when was Hermione? I think that was when we were here for John's birthday. That was August. Mm-hmm. And so John's birthday, we were out here kind of end of August. I think we came home just before Labor Day a couple years ago. And Hurricane Hermine, or whatever it was, not Hermione from Harry Potter, but Hermine, was a hurricane in Florida, came to Savannah as a tropical storm, and then went back out into the ocean as a hurricane and was another category like 4 or 5, and went up and hit the East Coast, like seaboard. So like Savannah just doesn't usually get hit directly. We got a crap ton of rain, and there was some storms out on the islands, like some bad weather, but you know what? It's warm. Like it's warm, but bring a sweatshirt because it might be cool in the evenings. Kind of thing.
Got it. That's like, I'm supposed to go back to Seattle in the top of August. So who knows? Hot and rainy.
Actually, Seattle in August is kind of, when I've been there, it's been beautiful.
Yeah, that's so I'm sure we'll spend most of the time in where Brandy lives, which is like a couple of hours outside of Seattle. But because we didn't go to Seattle last time because it was so freezing when I was there, because it was in January, we decided we're going to take the ferry over to Seattle. And then at some point she wants to drive to Canada because Canada's apparently close to where we are. She's like, bring your passport. I'm like, all right. Like, okay. I've never been to Canada. So, you know.
British Columbia is beautiful.
I've heard.
There's Victoria Island is stunning. There's a place there called Bouchard Gardens, which is like phenomenal.
And then at some point I have to go to Texas.
High tea at Bouchard Gardens. You should. It's lovely.
I will tell Brandy. Although Brandy be like, do I look like a high tea person here?
It's fine. If you go there, it's fine. It's like chill. If you go to the Empress in BC, like Empress Hotel, that's like bougie fancy. Like it's like
fancy.
Yeah. Like it's.
Well, we'll work on it.
I went there once when I was like 7.
Trips lined up, hopefully. We shall see. I feel like my face, for those of you who are watching me, and you see what I'm doing, you see that my hand is doing something weird. My light is odd today, but hey, you can see me. Anyway, that was a sleepy moment. Hi, I'm back. Anyway, like I said, it's been a busy week. Jess has had a busy week. But I guess we should get into it.
Yeah, so we're just gonna give you a warning. This episode may be spicy,
and because I don't know how she feels about any of the thing, the topic specifically. So,
you're gonna get real raw.
Definitely,
it's gonna be.
I mean,
it's gonna be
for those
Dave
of you who've heard this before
and the Netflix
and are
special.
Raw. Did you hear like somebody like jumped him?
Oh yeah.
At his special, and then Chris Rock comes on stage.
But did you see the video afterwards of that dude after security got a hold of him? Whoa, dang. Like his arm was backwards.
Yes.
He got jacked up.
And it's funny because the guy is in the hospital that attacked Dave Chappelle. Like Dave Chappelle's like, I'm good. Dude's in the hospital. Like, you tackled him and you're in the hospital.
Like I saw the video and I sent it to John and I was like, bruh, this is intense. Like home dude's
Super
whole
intense.
shoulder and
But
arm.
did you hear Chris Rock's comment?
Yes.
I was like,
about spit up.
Shade.
I was like, is that Will Smith? And I was like, there it is. All right. Sounds good.
I'm going to leave that alone. So anyway, how we got to this topic, I was in the grocery store, coming out of the grocery store because I was getting coffee on my way to work because some days I just really can't survive those children without it. And so I went into the Ralph's Starbucks that day because it's right by my school. And I'm walking out, and, there's always, I don't know about where you all live, but there's usually in the LA area, there's always some kind of petition going on. There's usually somebody trying to get you to sign something. Okay. So there's this lady out there. She wasn't really pestering people. She was just asking very nicely for signatures for healthcare workers to increase their pay. Some people are like, oh, I've already signed it. Some people are like, oh, no, thank you. And that's fine. If you don't want to sign something, my thing is you don't have to be like rude about it. I think what caught me was that this dude was like super rude the way he responded. Mind you, he's like a mid-40s, 6 foot something stocky black dude. And he gets loud with her. Like I'm getting in my car and I hear the whole thing because he's getting loud with her and she's not right near me. And she says to him politely, hi, I have a petition for XYZ. Can you sign it? Blah, 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 blah. I'm not signing that, nor will I ever sign it. And she's like, I'm sorry, excuse me. He's like, if people don't like their job, if you don't like what you do, if you want to get paid more money, quit your job and get another job. Just get something else. And she kind of is like, now I'm like, what? Like I have 1 foot in the car and 1 foot like out. And I'm like, wait, what did he just say? And it wasn't, okay, fine, have your opinion. That wasn't even the thing that tripped me out about it. But it was the fact that he was just like it's so simple to just quit your job and get another job and just make what you want to make, like by osmosis. Like you just apply for a job and I want to make this amount of money. Now there are some jobs and there are some positions and there are some times where you have that leverage to be able to do that.
Right.
But in healthcare, for sure, that's not something, unless from what I've been learning in the pandemic about traveling nurses and how much traveling nurses make, they make
well, and even that is changing.
And even that, like you said, is changing. And he's like being extremely combative with her. And I was just like, I had to remind myself to mind my own business because I didn't have a dog in this fight. I just was like, I felt like he was just kind of being obnoxious about it. And he stands at the door of the grocery store and he's still yelling at her about get a different job, find something else. And she's like, and you're the reason why some of these certain things and the way people think are why we don't get what we need. And she's like, some of these people in healthcare are not making what you think they make. He's like, that's why I said, if you don't like what you make, get a different job. I got my butt in the car at that point because I'm like, you're going to be late to work. And like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight, but it did make me think that there are so many jobs and positions, healthcare included, depending on the level of healthcare, because I know doctors don't make what nurses make, etc. Lab techs don't make, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, it's like every field. There's different
levels and there's different skills, but there's a lot of different jobs out there that are underappreciated. Like we learned during the span of the pandemic how underappreciated grocery store workers are. My neighborhood grocery store closed instead of increasing the pay of its workers. That's literally what happened. They decided they didn't want to pay them more, so they just shut down the grocery store. So now my neighborhood has no grocery store. You know what I'm saying? So we have to go outside of the neighborhood. Now, mind you, I don't have an issue with that because, we do whatever. There's a lot of people in my community that don't have access to fresh food like that and can't get to stores outside of the community, outside of the neighborhood. So it just made me think, like, if he's thinking this about healthcare, like, dude, what are your other things? So that's kind of how this topic came from. Like healthcare in other places that are underappreciated. What do we feel about it? How do we feel about it? Etc. Like I said, I don't know Jess's thoughts. I told her about it, and she's like, "Ooh, spicy." And so here we go.
Well, it's interesting to me because like I worked in ministry. I was working full time in ministry during the pandemic when it first started, and then I was working part time in ministry for the bulk of the big shutdowns in 2020.
Right.
And so my whole thing is I 1000% appreciate nurses and I appreciate teachers. They are hard jobs, and healthcare workers, they don't get a lot of breaks. They don't. I mean,
Right.
It's a tough gig, and
Right.
I think that you should be paid according to what you're worth.
Yeah.
That being said, it's funny to me. There are two specific. There are two specific industries where I have noticed that, actually there's three. There's three like industries where I have noticed that people like demand that you appreciate them.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like on social media posts. Like I've never seen any, there are three like realms of work where I see people complain the most about their jobs and then also like demand that they be appreciated.
Right.
And they are police officers, healthcare workers, and teachers. And
you're not wrong though,
yeah,
because I was one of those people.
Right. And when it's like, and the thing is, I have a husband with a chronic illness. I appreciate healthcare workers. I have benefited from teaching, and I have myself not taught necessarily in an education system, but I have been a teacher of small people in certain like musical realms. So I know even just from that little bit that it's a tough gig. So I appreciate teachers, and I appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate those in public safety, like first responders. I 100% appreciate them. That is a mentally and physically challenging job, even on your best days. Like all three of them are incredible industries, and I appreciate them. But I also, I look through a lot of other gigs that I know are tough gigs. Like, and you don't see people out there, like every once in a while you'll see like after a big storm, you'll see people be like, hey, we appreciate our linemen, which that is an incredibly crucial job. So I guess for me, like the thing that sort of like, I don't know, it begins to rub me the wrong way when all I ever see is, and this is particularly, I will say actually in the education field more than any other, is like a lot of complaints about the job and the pay about the job. And I get it. Like it does not pay well. I 1000% understand that it does not pay well in some regards. In some places it really does. So I think it just depends on where you are. Like
depends on where you are, what portion of healthcare you work in, what hospital, it's I think there's so many different things, because then you have those who are like county hospital workers, then you have versus the private care, you know what I'm saying? Like it's different, so yeah, I'm sorry, go on.
So, and so the thing is, like, I respect what he says about if you're not getting what you need in your job, then you should get another one. Except I think he's oversimplifying, because it's not just super easy to just pick up and get another job.
Right.
Like that's not a thing. Yes, we live in a very interesting job market right now. It's super, super crazy, but like, it's not as cut and dry as we'll just quit your job and get one that pays more. Nice fantasy world that you live in, bro. But like, that's not how the rest of us live.
Yeah. And I think that was my issue with it, because it was just so, and I'm not doing justice at the crassness and the nasty tone that he had with her. And I don't believe she was being aggressive. She literally was just doing her job at that moment.
She's a paid signature gatherer. Like
that's all, she is. Now, whether she herself works in healthcare or has family, friends, whatever, I don't know. But at the end of the day, she was doing her job, and there was no need, in my opinion, for him to get so dirty with her. Now, you're right. I guess I am guilty of the whole like teachers are underpaid, blah, 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 blah. And the demanding thing. And I guess I didn't look at it as like we're demanding pay and other people are not, and they deserve more too. So I never looked at it like that. But at the same time, it does go back to, like you said, also value. And yes, there are other, I mean, ministry positions are underpaid again, but that also depends on the church. It depends on the ministry. It even sometimes
Exactly.
depends on the denomination. Um,
Well, but the thing is, like,
right now, to me, the top paid people are people with kids because you get all kinds of cutbacks on your taxes. They get extra stimulus checks right now, like all this
don't
other
even get me
stuff.
started.
But yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother subject for another day. But I'm just saying, like, literally, like you said, the job market is insane right now. A lot of us are
Yeah.
between a rock and a hard place, trying to figure out how to do what we need to do and then cover our bills. I go to work now and I am just like dreading being there. And I love kids. And there are days where I'm like, oh, this is why I do this. But then there were days like yesterday, I'm like, these kids are jerkholes and I want to go away. Like,
right? And you're like, you couldn't pay me enough.
You don't pay me
Right?
enough. And it
Right.
just so happened that this week, as we're recording it, is Teacher Appreciation Week and all that. Out of my 60, and not saying that I demand gifts or any of that, so please don't take that this way. Out of my 60 plus, 70 plus students, I got 2 gifts from 2 parents out of all of my kids. One a new parent, and the other one was from a parent who I've had her kid since she was in 2nd grade. Again, not that I asked for it, not that I even expected a teacher's appreciation gift, but the fact that a lot of parents still do not understand what we have to deal with some of your children when half of you are in denial of how your children are. Like, I literally pray, God, please don't let this child end up being a sociopath because they're literally nuts.
Oh, I believe it.
Why did you do such and such? I don't know. I thought it was funny. You thought it was funny to ram a kid and fall on the ground and then pull their ponytail? Like, you thought that was funny. You thought that was cool. You thought it was like okay to do cartwheel flips in the middle of class. Like, you think that's okay when it doesn't require it. So, I mean, I know I'm on a soapbox and I get it that there are so many other jobs that are also thankless and that deserve more money. I just feel like you don't really know until you walk into somebody's shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really don't know what they deserve and don't deserve. And so to me, it was a matter in that moment, sign a petition, don't sign the petition.
But don't be mean about it.
Go do your grocery shopping and don't be mean about it. You know what I'm saying?
That was uncalled for.
There are, unfortunately, a lot of programs that are underfunded that need the finances. There are, like you said, some nurses that do really well depending on where you are, and there's some that don't. But it's not, to me, just the nurses. You have the phlebotomists, you have the cafeteria workers, the cooks, those who are supporting cast to the big names. You know what I'm saying? Doctors, I've realized doctors truly cannot do their jobs without all those people underneath them, the lab techs,
1,000%,
the
1,000% they can,
the orderlies, all of that stuff. It matters. So when those people are not being appreciated, they're not doing their job to the best of their ability, which is getting to eventually going to get to the top. It's going to get to the head, and things are going to fall apart. Just like in school, just like in the police department, just like in the fire department. I always joke, I don't want to marry a cop. I don't want to marry a firefighter. A firefighter to me is just suicidal. You literally go into fires every day. I cannot be married to you. I will pass out and have a heart attack. I can't do it.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, I think what's interesting about
but your job is important.
right. Like, the thing that, like, particularly interesting about healthcare and education is, to me, I look at them and I go, they're problematic on every level. Healthcare is a disaster. And education, to me, frankly, public education, and private for the most part too, but like especially public education, that's a disaster too. Because one of the reasons we left California is because our taxes just kept going up and going up and going up and going up. We were paying more in taxes and getting less for it every day. And the thing that kept coming through, that they would always like hold the kids hostage for every little tax increase that they wanted to do. Oh, well, my favorite one was that gas tax that they raised a couple years ago. And it's like, well, this is going to go to our education fund. And the reality is, it never gets to the teachers. It never gets to the ground level. It always gets stopped somewhere higher up. And
Mhm.
so every year we're in that same position where we're holding our school kids hostage. And if you don't vote for this tax, you don't love kids. And it's like, no, I don't vote for the tax because I don't trust anybody who's actually managing those resources, because it never
Right.
gets where it's supposed to go. And
Right.
so,
And
like,
why
that's
is
the
that?
thing. Well, because it's tied up. It's tied up in pensions. It's tied up in grift of contracts that are overbid because they, somebody knows somebody else who gets that contract.
Right.
It's consultants who come in and don't do anything for educators, who just get paid a crap ton of money to tell them nothing that's actually going to make a difference in their classroom. There's a lot, there's a million things that all this money goes to. And the same is true in healthcare. I mean, healthcare is a disaster too, as far as that goes, where there's just so much overage and so much that's not actually getting down into the patient care levels of things like that. So, I mean, to me, that's the discussion that we should be having, because that's the discussion that ultimately pays teachers what they should be getting and need to get, gets them more aides in their classroom, gets them, kids who need IEPs and special education and stuff like that, gets them what they need and the resources in the classroom.
Right.
That conversation is the one that gets phlebotomists and your workers who work in kind of the lower level healthcare jobs.
Yeah.
They need in order to do their jobs.
Yeah.
It's a mess across the board. Like,
I
the
agree.
fact that they did not require insurance companies to be able to write policies across state lines when we did all that healthcare reform how many years ago?
Right.
Is mind-blowing to me, because that is
Which was what one of the whole points of that was supposed to be, if I'm not incorrect. So it's like, what are you doing? And it makes you, and not that you and I, we don't love talking about politics, but it makes you wonder what's really happening in the room where it happens. You know what I'm saying? Because
nothing good.
And it's on both sides. It's not, to me, it's not a one party thing. It is a two-party thing, because then when we don't come to decisions that is best for community and country, but we're making decisions on what feeds our own need, no matter what side you're on, you're not doing your job as a politician, in my opinion. Your job is to be the voice for your area, your state, your community, your city, mayor, governor, senator, whatever your position is. You're supposed to be doing the things that works best. You're supposed to fight for those people, not just fight for a portion of the people. And I think that becomes frustrating, because you don't really, when it comes down to these elections, like right now we're having the LA mayoral elections, and like literally I look at some of these commercials and I'm like, first of all, where did you come from? Second of all, yeah, okay. Like we've been promising to clean up the streets of LA and the homeless situation since I was a little girl. And it has gotten worse. We've not cleaned it up. We've not helped. We haven't figured out the best programs to get some of these people off the street. And then we also have to have the understanding that a lot of them don't want to be off of the streets. There are some mental health issues. There are some shame issues. Sisters in Ministry, another group I work with sometimes, before pandemic, we would do a yearly street revival.
Right.
And one of the ladies who actually spoke one year, she used to live on Skid Row, which is a very prominent LA homeless area, for those of you who don't know. And she said, I used to live on Skid Row. My family, my kids would come look for me. They would come find me. And the reality is, I didn't want to go home. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to stop my addiction. I wasn't ready to fight for myself. I wasn't ready. And she said, when I made the decision and I allowed God to truly turn me around, that's when I made the decision. And so what she shared was her testimony. But in that, there was an understanding that there are a lot of people who don't know how to go back home. There are a lot of people who don't have a home to go back to truly. And, some of them don't have families. Some of them really have mental issues that need some housing in some form of facility that can help take care of them. Just sweeping them off the street is not the answer. And then making all these empty promises, because literally you're saying it, but what is your plan? I have not heard a plan yet from a mayoral candidate on either side, Republican, Democratic, Liberal, Green, whatever they are. I haven't heard a plan as to what you're going to do other than saying, because you're just trying to get votes by saying you're going to move it. Because as I mentioned to you guys before, my coworker and I had this thing where he's like, I hate Governor, Mayor Villagosa. And I said, why do you hate him? Not, and it wasn't anything major. His reason to hate, well, first of all, the man had COVID and he was like, that's good for him. No, that's not good. And I don't care how you feel political about anybody. I don't think you should be okay with the fact that they have COVID. And his reasoning was, he said, well, it's the homeless situation. I said, let me guess, it's a problem because it's now in your neighborhood. And I had to break it down to him, like, just because it's now in your neighborhood, it's been here my entire life. Do you know what I've been doing since I was a kid? Feeding them, clothing them, helping them.
Well, and that's the thing.
Not just, he inherited a problem.
Right.
I don't care what you feel about him politically. He inherited the problem. He didn't just make the problem. He's not turning a blind eye to the problem.
Now the conversation you can have at that point is what he did it work? Was it ultimately beneficial? That's the conversation you can have. Right. But no, I mean, I remember 20 years ago, my first ministry in Long Beach, that was a huge issue that we dealt with all the time there. And it's nuanced and it's difficult, and there is not a one size fits all solution, right? Because every neighborhood and every person is different and has a different need and a different set of needs. But one of the things that we struggled with was, there is a social hierarchy within homeless communities.
Yes,
and
there is.
You've got to make sure that you're addressing those issues, and theft and medication. And I mean, there are incredibly vulnerable people within an already vulnerable community, because there will be those in the community that will take, I mean, it is so nuanced. And so all of these candidates come in from who have never actually done any real meaningful work.
Right.
And they'll come in and say, well, we're going to clean this up and we're going to do X and Y and Z. And it's like, bro, you don't even know. You don't even know what it takes. Right. Because you want to just throw money at something. You want to spend your way out of a problem that you can't spend your way out of. Well, I was reading something. This is probably a year ago. They were talking about housing solutions for the homeless problem in LA. And one of them was to build these apartments that they were going to give free housing for. Yeah. And each apartment that they built had something like an $800,000 price tag to it. And they did this trial program of like just a couple units to see if it worked. And because they didn't they ran out of money, so they didn't provide any services in attached to these houses. Yeah. And they the units were destroyed because they didn't do anything to actually help the person. They just put a roof over they just housed them. They were technically off the street, but then they wasted most of $1 million.
Right. What people don't understand, especially when it comes to the homeless community, and no, we didn't forget the topic and we haven't digressed. This is all connected, in my opinion, right? Because we're making votes and we're making decisions, we're signing petitions, but then we're not seeing, the reward. And unfortunately, for some of the healthcare positions and things like that, it's unfair because people are signing and decisions are being made, but they're still not getting what they need. They're not getting the supplies they need. Even it's not even just about their paycheck. They need money for more supplies, better supplies, different things like that. And all of this is connected because the people who are supposed to fight for them are not fighting for them. They're fighting for the big picture. They are looking at the big business of it, unfortunately. Now, granted, I don't work in that field. I don't work in the big business of it, but this is what I can see as a result of what has happened. So I do hope in these newer petitions that it does help increase pay, because I do know so many nurses and so many people that work in healthcare that are not nurses and work in nursing homes and things like that, who are extremely underpaid and do a lot of work to barely make it and barely see their families, barely see their children. Again, some people can look at that as that's their choice. They chose the job, all that. Okay, fine. But at
But
the
they
end of the
probably
day, this
chose
is
that
the
job
choice.
because it had a pay structure attached
Yes.
that made sense for them.
Yes.
So here's the thing that I'm running into, and this is very personal because I run into it. You know, I work in education. I work in private education.
Right.
So the pay is not great, because private schools.
Right.
Not all private schools are funded like a USC or a UCLA. You know,
right.
Some of us ain't got that cheddar.
USC got banked.
Yeah. So California in particular is raising minimum wages, right? And so it's like, okay, now as of 2022, it is for sure 15, it might even be more than that, but it's $15 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah. Which I think is terrible, but
yeah. Well, but the thing is, okay, so minimum wage is now $15 an hour. That means that somebody coming in entry level is going to get $15 an hour.
Right.
That doesn't always correlate to a raise in all of the wages above that.
You're right.
Now my job that was fairly good, had decent pay, you know, it wasn't amazing, but it was okay. Now is not, because between what I could be making if I switched jobs, that's why you see a lot of right now people who are getting raises by just switching jobs, because their employers aren't actually raising their wages, because they may not be able to afford to, right? So instead of letting the market dictate what wages are, we've now said you have to come into here, but that makes people who are working here, their jobs are not worth as much to them. And especially with inflation right now, this is where we're beginning to see this squeeze. Like my job, you know, I love my job. I love my coworkers. I love the university. And it's not their fault necessarily. They're kind of in a tough space as well, as far as what they can do. But the reality is that, you know, I make less now than I did when I started at my job.
Right.
But I'm working twice as hard as I did before, because it's harder. It's getting harder.
It's hard.
So the reality is that if I need to increase my pay, I'm not going to get a raise at my job. I'm not going to get a cost of living increase. Those don't happen at my job. So now I have to decide, like, am I going to continue here? Are the intrinsic values of working for the company that I love and for the place that I love, does that outweigh the financial need that my family has? You know, we're getting squeezed on this with our house. You know, I had a meeting last Friday where, you know, they may raise the price of our house by $50,000 or $60,000 on us.
What?
And yeah, I mean, it's a very real possibility that they come back. They had it written into our contract. If our costs go up, which thanks COVID, everybody's costs have gone up.
Yeah, everybody's costs has gone up.
But that may mean that we have to pay $60,000, $70,000 more for the house than we budgeted for, on top of the fact that interest rates are now 2% higher than they were when we signed our contract. So it represents an extra $1,000 a month for us. So, I mean, we have some tough financial questions that we have to answer for ourselves coming about this house. You know, we moved out here to help lower our costs.
Right. That was the deal, you know?
Right. So it's to me, I think the problem that I have with the conversations that are like, well, let's just sign a petition and let's raise everybody's wages. In a perfect world, yeah, great. I'm all for it. But seeing the backside of water and what that means for everybody else in that environment, it's not as simple a conversation as I think we all wish it could be. You know, because my heart is, give them their due, give them what they earned. If it were me, we would be paying teachers pro athlete salaries. That's just, to me, that's what we would be doing, because that's where our
pro
value
athletes,
right?
Even injured, not playing, they still get their money. Like, they literally just have to show up, you know what I'm saying? And they still get their money. Whereas you have, and not, you know, people love sports. I'm not hating on sports. That's not my thing. I'm not
go sports.
That. You know, go sports, do your thing. Because a lot of you all are getting injured and having career ending injuries and things like that. So that money you're going to eventually need, because, you know, there's only so many sportscaster jobs and so many coaching jobs and so many,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? So it takes me back to, there's two things. When I went back to work because I was off during COVID, and because they did eventually halfway through COVID, like, oh, people need to have their kids still taken care of. So, can you come in? Well, because of my immune system, it
There
was a
was
no
on a,
go.
yeah,
And this was before
understandably so.
vaccines and all of that. And so when I did go back to work, I found out that they were paying the people who worked during COVID um, a certain amount.
Mm-hmm.
When we came back for the full school year, they were no longer going to pay that. And the people who were making that had to have their pay docked back to the regular pay. Mind you, before pandemic even happened, I was in a fight for a raise, and I am still in a fight for a raise.
Right.
I do a lot,
Right. Absolutely.
including I might have to pay somebody to make a track for the kids show because there's 2 songs I can't find, and that's probably going to cost me a lot. But and that doesn't come out of my staff budget. It doesn't come. It comes out of my own pocket. All of the stuff for the shows that I do, if the school doesn't get
Yeah.
uniforms and costumes for them, I have to buy that stuff. I have to make that stuff. I have to do all of that out of my own budget. I don't make nearly enough to take care of what it costs to produce a show. Like, I don't.
Right.
And so, with that being said, you have people who are back to who were used to making up here, and now they had to go back
Yep.
$4 or $5. And $4 or
That's a
$5 may
lot.
not sound like a lot,
Oh
but
no, it's a
that's a
ton.
lot, And so, going back to the thought of, we even with the homeless situation, well, there was a lot of people who became homeless because of the pandemic and different things. And
Mhm.
so then that increased the homeless situation. And like you said, they had these housing ideas, but they didn't have any other plan. What people don't understand, and I guess I digress too far because this is what I wanted to say then. What people don't understand is when you start taking the homeless off the street, there is more work that goes into it than just giving them a roof. They need
Absolutely.
financial assistance.
Mm-hmm.
They need training for jobs. They need education. Some of them need a GED so they can get a job. Some of them need to learn how to live on their own. Some of them, there needs to be programs in place,
Mm-hmm.
not just housing, how to maintain a budget, how to take care of your living expenses. What are your living expenses? All of these things. It's not just a roof. Yes, a roof is wonderful. They need food. They need clothes. They need medication, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that goes into it. And so when we're cutting pay, it's getting increasingly worse because then, especially in LA, people are losing their homes left and right. Rent has gone up for a lot of people. They can't afford it. And then they're becoming homeless, not by choice, which most homeless people, there are some that are doing it by choice and some who are just not. There is a small percentage of whom people are like, I just want to be homeless. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a very small percentage of those people. They do exist, but it's small. Most people, even in 2022, there are newly homeless people because of the way things are working financially and because the people in our communities who are supposed to be fighting for us are not fighting the right way. They are not making the best decisions. And I will say this, shout out to Pastor Jawan Hilton. He is the mayor pro tem of Carson. The reason I can say that I feel like people are not working, he's a pastor, full-time pastor,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also the mayor pro tem of Carson, and he does everything for his city. He does everything he possibly can. He builds community. He makes sure that there's job opportunities in their
Mm-hmm.
community. He makes sure that there's new restaurants and businesses opening, and he is promoting them. He's a full-time pastor. He is a full-time real estate agent, but he is also helping his community. So it's not impossible
No.
to be done. but you have to have the right mindset and you have to have the right heart. We don't have people who have the right heart in these positions. They are in some of these positions because they want the power of the position, but they're not
Mhm.
what they're supposed to do with the position. And that is what's hurting us. That's what's
Mhm.
hurting healthcare. That's what's hurting the police department. That's what's hurting the fire department. That's what's hurting the county offices. That's what's hurting the homeless programs. That's what's hurting education. It's what's hurting
Absolutely.
a lot of us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Point blank, period. If you're going to be in the room where it happens, make sure you're in the room where it happens for a reason.
Right.
Make sure you're in the room where it happens and you're actually going to help. Make sure you have the understanding of what people need.
And if you don't know, figure out
Find
what
it
you
out.
don't know. Right. It's like people who don't know what they don't know and they just sit there and they splavocate words for whatever. That's why
Right.
politics means poly and ticks means blood-sucking creatures. That's what politics is. Many blood-sucking creatures.
You're right, because both of those things mean those things and put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the best definition of politics I ever read.
That's the best definition of politics.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that we don't need structure and government and all of that. I'm not saying that.
No.
But it you can say what you want about some of the people of the past. I look back as I'm older. Some of the decisions that were made, but when we were even kids, are affecting us now because people are playing catch up to some of the bad decisions that were made in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah. Oh,
We're paying for it now.
Seriously, I think the thing that we lack the most in our wisdom, if this is the thing that I could say, Lord, this is the prayer that I have for every single person on this planet, and particularly here, those of us in the United States, because that's where obviously we live and that's kind of where what affects us. But it's like, if I could magically grant people the ability to consider and understand and plan accordingly for the repercussions of the actions that they take. The understanding that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yep.
If I do X, then Y and Z will follow. That is, to me, I have spent most of my life honing that skill for me. Because I know it's important, and I think that is a special dispensation and one of the gifts that I have from God. That is my ability to prognosticate, I guess you might call it, but like to have that, to know what the prognosis is going to be based on actions. Yeah. And to me, that has been the thing that I go, if I do X and Y, then Z and A and B and C will happen based on the best information that I can. No, that's not always going to be accurate.
No.
There are curveballs and there are plot twists for all of us.
Right.
But if I could instill in humanity one skill, it would be the ability to act according to the logical outcomes of the behaviors that we take. It never ceases to amaze me that people do boneheaded things and then are just gobsmacked, absolutely shocked that everything went upside down. Like, really? I told you. I could have painted you a picture. Right. Do you need me to like draw and carve it into like the wall? Like, what's the deal?
And when you have these plans for petitions and bills and all these things, when you guys have these plans, when people have these plans, I feel like there should be a testing happening when you have an idea. You should test your theory. For instance, I was watching, there's a show my mom and I have been watching called Good Sam. It's about this daughter. It's a daughter and father duo. The father is a complete jerkhole. Okay. He was the chief of cardiothoracic surgery. His daughter was in the program as well, and he ends up getting shot. Long story short, he's in like a coma for like 6-7 months. She takes the chief position. He wakes up, he wants his job back, but he has to work to get it back. So there was this scene in one of the most recent episodes where there was this like insane twisted tumor in this lady's heart, and it was one that it's generally inoperable. So the dad had this idea that he's had for years called the Griffith method, because his last name is Griffith. So doctors, they have this thing where they name things after themselves. It is what it is. It's like the equivalent of having a bunch of juniors, like John Jr. It's like you name all your medical stuff, like, Anyway.
It's George Foreman.
Exactly. George Foreman. He has a grill and children named George.
Makes
George
it easy
1,
to
2,
remember
3,
who's
4,
who.
and 5, I believe. So, and a daughter named Georgina. Anyway, so
As one does.
he has his method, but he's never actually done the method. He's never actually practiced the method. He's never even tried it on a doll or anything. He's never tried it. It's only been in his head, right? So it gets down to the fact that this lady either gets the surgery or she just dies, right? So the daughter, while he's doing something else, she's like, well, technically I've done the method twice and I think I can work. But she put into action something that was just in his mind. She put it into action and added something that she figured out what would help, because when she tried it the first time with it was just his method, it killed people. He tried it on the video game version of it. He killed the person 19 times. Whereas she took the method and she added something that would sustain the whatever to enough so that she can get to the tumor the way it needs to in order for this woman to survive. And it gave me a thought. Why are we not putting into action the plan before we actually get the job? You need to have a valid way of making these things work, or making these things happen, or getting the finances that these institutions need. Your plan doesn't need to, I'm going to make it happen. Your plan needs to, I'm going to make it happen by doing this because I did this. That's what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you sit there and it's like, well, I look at certain quotes that have become famous over the years. One of my favorite quotes was, I don't even remember which politician said it and what bill it was, because this has happened a couple times, but they're like, like the bill came up for vote. This was in this Congress or something like that. And they were like, this bill came up for a vote. I think it might've been the healthcare bill. And
Probably.
it was like huge. It was like so many pages that no one could read it. Like it was too much to read in however long before the vote came to the, and they said, we have to pass it to find out what's in it. And I'm like, do you understand the words that you just said? Like, you're not going to even read it. And like, people pass bad bills all the time.
Because they need the funding to make it happen. And then they make it happen and then it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, scrap that. So now you've wasted $3.5 million on something that's not going to work.
Yeah. Like, I sit there and I go, if I ran my household, if I ran my life the way that politicians run government, good gravy, like it's nuts. And I just sit there and I go, we live in too chaotic a world right now. I was commenting to my friend Ashley this morning. We were chatting and I was like, I feel like our world is just nuts. Like there is just so much. People no longer have the capacity to handle life on life's terms.
Yeah.
We created a perfect storm of an environment. And we talked about this a lot in seasons 1 and 2 of the podcast, like kind of the unintended consequences of lockdowns. Right. And it's like, you could go back and forth as to whether they were the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but we have to acknowledge that there were repercussions from that.
Yeah.
Mental health repercussions, physical health repercussions, lots of stuff that came about as a result of the lockdowns. And I think one of them that we are going to see for a few years now is, and someone put this on Instagram and I was like, you're not wrong. It was, we came out of lockdown and we resumed our initial, we resumed life the way that it was without recognizing that we don't have the stamina or the skills for that anymore.
And that life itself has changed.
Right.
Period.
Well, and so like case in point, pre-pandemic, I had the stamina for Sunday worship services because I was doing it every week. It was my body, my mentality, everything was used to what it took to get through a service and rehearsals and that long 6 or 7 hour day that I would have, which 6 and 7 hours of ministry is a different 6 or 7 hours, right?
It's a completely different 6 or 7 hours.
It's like, it touches on all the aspects, right? So it's exhausting. I didn't do it for a full year and 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I was out of the game for 15 months. And then I come back in and I'm not even planning it. I'm not even doing the midweek stuff. I'm just showing up to play an instrument on a Sunday morning. I get there at 6:00 in the morning and I leave at 12:30. That's my day, 6.5 hours. And the first Sunday I did it, I came home and I crashed because it wasn't like they were, first off, I was a little bit rusty on my skills, but like I came home and I crashed because it drained me. I no longer
Yeah.
had the stamina to do that.
Yeah.
And so I look at us now where we're trying to just get right back into things that were normal
And no,
when we had a
it's just
world
not
that
working.
we just don't have the ability. We don't have the mental capacity for it.
No, we
don't
don't.
have the emotional capacity for it. We don't have the physical stamina. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have the ability. There is a school of thought that says that all of these like liver conditions that kids are going through is because they haven't had interaction with germs for 2 years.
Well, that's true. I mean,
You know?
though kids are
They're
disgustingly
germ
germy, but
right. They
they
produce.
they have it, and to that point, a couple things. I have a student who, before pandemic, um, and these are the things parents do that are just dumb, but whatever. It's your kid. Do what you want to do. So I've had the student since he was in TK. He's now in third grade. He was skipped. So TK is like pre-kindergarten. It's not preschool. It's called transitional kindergarten for those of you out there who don't know what TK means, because it didn't exist until like 4 years ago anyway.
Right.
So he was in TK and he was skipped to first grade. So he did not go to kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he was not ready to be skipped to kindergarten, to first grade from kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
His brother went from TK to first grade, but here's the thing. Kids are not the same kid. The brother and him are completely different people.
Oh yeah.
And the brother was able to handle first grade from TK. The reason this kid was skipped was because basically, long story short, she didn't like the kindergarten teacher and he was going to have to deal with that because at that point we only had one kindergarten teacher at the school. So he was skipped to first grade when he was not ready. So we've been dealing with behavior issues from this kid because, granted, he's very funny. He is smart. He's extremely talented. But emotionally, he was not ready for first grade. Well, then pandemic hits. He is doing work at home and he comes back to school when school opens and he's now in third grade. Well, Dad and I had a talk the other day. He's like, I think, Miss Joy, we're going to keep him back in third grade. He said, I don't think he's ready to move to fourth grade. He's not emotionally there. He's not academically there. It's not that he's not smart. I said, no, it's not that he's not smart. He's just not ready. And one of the things he said was, I don't think he should have been skipped to first grade in the first place. And then the pandemic hit and he didn't do well over Zoom. His brother, on the other hand, did completely fine. He is going to go to fifth grade next year and he's going to be perfectly fine. The little brother, it's not going to work for him because he didn't do well at home and then he missed out a lot. And so emotionally, he's still in second grade. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Some of these kids excelled during the pandemic, doing virtual, and some did not. And then they come back to school and it's like, you're a fifth grader now and you were in third grade when the pandemic hit. You know what I'm saying? Like some of them, granted, some are huge jerk holes, but some of them are still adjusting, even though school's almost over, to being back in person and being in a grade, 2 grades higher than they were when we went out in 2020, because we were mid-semester in 2020 when it shut down. Then, on a personal note, I have been on sabbatical from my choir for, well, it was only supposed to be a year. I was going back. Pandemic happens. Then I was going to go back. Then I was too busy with birthdays and books. Then I was going to go back. Then I was too busy with birthdays and grief. I mean, books and grief, because then Jill passed and all that.
Yeah.
So now I'm back. I'm back. And I forgot how long rehearsals are.
Right.
Rehearsal is, so I work in Westchester area near the airport, for those of you who live in LA. My rehearsals are all the way in Palos Verdes.
That's a schlep, man.
So that's That's a bit of a schlep on a Monday.
Ooh.
In traffic.
Nope.
Not only that, rehearsal was from 7 to 10. And I thought it was from 7 to 9. Honey, we hit 9:15. I was like, oh, we're still doing this. Like, I
Right.
was burnt out
Yeah.
that night. Then I had to get up early the next day and go to the doctor's appointment. And I was so tired, but I was like, I got to get up. I got to get showered. I got to get dressed. I got to get in the car and I got to drive to the doctor. And it just, Tuesday just happened to be like the longest back and forth day of life. I was late to work. It was all kinds of stuff going on. I don't have I have to rebuild stamina. Not saying I'm going to quit. Not saying like it's not for me. You know, I'll reevaluate after the season is over. But I'm like, it's a lot. I haven't done it. I haven't done praise and worship in a while. I haven't done a lot of that, you know?
Yeah.
And so, whereas I've been building in this field in podcasting with you, we've been building with trying to get our ministry off the ground. Whereas I've been getting the book out and I've been doing festivals and I'm trying to send the book to different places to get play. We're going to be working on an audiobook. And then there was another suggestion to translate the book into Spanish. So that's a whole nother thing that I haven't talked to you about yet. Anyway, so
that's going to be someone else because my Spanish is muy mal.
I know. So all of like, I've been building in these areas. So the things that I did before the pandemic, I'm like, how do I do that again? Like teaching has been rough this year. And it's not just that the kids are jerkholes because they are. I just want to make that clear. They are jerkholes, especially
in case
my
you
fourth and
didn't
fifth
hear.
grade. But just I didn't teach for 16, 17 months. And I am like rusty. I don't know how this show is going to go this spring. They're not ready. We have like 4 weeks ish left, 6 rehearsals ish left. And I'm like looking at them in rehearsal this week going, I need to cancel this show. And it's not just them. I don't feel like I've been the best teacher I can be this year because I just don't have the capacity. And then the question of, am I going to work this summer for summer camp school? And I'm like, financially, I need to, because it's not like, you know, our podcast is making a lot of money and not like we're making money in ministry yet and not like we're making money with the book yet like that. Like we've sold books, but it's not like, you know.
No, it's not survival money.
But mentally, can I do it?
Yeah.
Because literally summer school starts the week after school gets out. I wouldn't have a break. And then they're like looking at the reality. I have things I need to do, but I also need money to do the things that I need to do. It's just, it's a complicated situation, you know?
It is. And so I look at kind of full circle, taking it back to where we started, which is, you know, bad behavior from that dude. 1000% bad behavior.
Completely.
Let's not sugarcoat it. He too, like Joy's students, was a jerkwad. But like, it's bad behavior, people acting out, people acting all fool. And then the desire to maybe help or the anger at the fact that, you know, I see a scenario in which that dude doesn't get paid anymore. So why should somebody else get paid more? Because he's struggling to make it through. So why should he sign a petition to help anybody else? Because it's not like it's going to help him. And it's this whole environment where none of us have the capacity to do the things that we used to do. And going back to the other conversation about government, you know, politics, have any of the elected officials that we have elected in the last however long since we've been electing officials, have they actually made our lives better?
Not many that I can think of. And that, and like I said, that's on both sides. That's not a party. It's not about party. It's literally on both sides. Like, and it's frustrating. It's maddening, you know, and I see all these people moving to different countries. And granted, some of these countries have way less like drama than we have government wise, but then we're technically the land of the free, you know?
Well, and that's the thing, like, because that's what we value. I mean, if I moved out of California because California no longer felt like a place where the things that I value could be achieved. or could like it was getting more and more difficult to do those things.
Yeah.
And to have the kind of life that I wanted to lead, as far as having a work-life balance and seeing my husband and not being stressed out about finances, although congratulations, thanks government, that's followed me here. But at the same point, so I have no problem if people want to move to the UK because there's subsidized healthcare there.
Thing.
That's fine. Just understand that when you trade off X and Y, there's a trade-off that comes in other things as well. Like,
and that's in anything.
Experience freedom of your choices for certain things the way that you are here. Like, if you want to do that, that's great. If you want to move to Italy, I would go just because they have better pasta. Like, that's a reason that I would go to Italy.
Although I've learned from this lady on TikTok, as I have a digression moment, she's an American living in Italy. She moved there for her boyfriend.
The blonde
one
lady?
With the curly hair. Yeah.
Yes.
And it cracked me up when she's like, do not ask for fettuccine Alfredo.
Not a thing.
In Italy. It does not exist. It is an American Italian thing, not an Italian thing.
Yeah.
And I had heard that before, but watching her TikToks make me laugh because she has all kinds of fun tips. And then she came to visit home.
Yes.
And I can't think of her name. Otherwise, I'll tell you guys to go find her because
she's super cute, like the blonde curly haired girl.
Yeah, she has some really fun tips.
I think that our TikTok algorithm is like very, very similar.
Yeah, Jessica's TikTok thinks that she's a Black woman.
Yeah, 1000%. And I don't mind it. It's great. It's like, this is fantastic. But
it makes me laugh because some of the TikToks she sends me, I'm like, how did that get on your algorithm?
Girl, you don't even know. Like, and I again, I don't care.
She gets more stuff than I do, great. And I am a Black woman.
I get like black hair care, like.
Although because of your hair texture, some of those tips might actually work because of your natural state of your hair.
But like some of it, I'm just like, I don't understand the algorithm. And frankly,
we totally have the same algorithm. It goes from Christian TikTok to messy TikTok to
Broadway
TikTok.
But sending you a lot of Patty LuPone.
I get a lot of food, which is kind of why I went on there because I wanted to find unique recipes, but.
Right.
A lot. There's this one guy. Sorry, this is totally off topic.
That's okay. We needed one.
Food like he's having relations with it. Like he's not, but like his videos always have like super sexy music, and he's like slapping the chicken's butt. Like
that guy. You sent me his stuff.
I was like some of his recipes are good, but then some of them like I feel uncomfortable. Like,
do I should I be watching this?
Like this is like
private
for real food porn. Like I need to like. Back up, like the way he stuffed the lemon in the chicken, I was like, this is not okay. Like,
be like, that's between you.
That, and then Jen sends me 1,000 TikToks, and she has a very similar one. She has a very similar algorithm too, but then she has other stuff that I don't have. She has like the cranky, like I'm 40 and everybody sucks TikToks too, like. These kids don't know nothing about life.
Yeah, no, I have some of those too. I have some of those, yeah.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Accurate. It's super, super accurate.
That was my digression.
Now it's all Johnny Depp, Amber Heard.
First of all, I'm hashtag Team Johnny Depp. I don't really care what anybody else says. I think Amber Heard is nuts.
She comes across as incredibly disingenuous.
Yeah, she does. And I've been a Johnny Depp fan my entire life. Like 21 Jump Street. And before.
You know, the thing that sold it for me is I think back to like the Me Too movement, and whenever there was somebody who was a genuinely bad guy that would get called out, there would always be a bunch of other people that would jump on the bandwagon and be like, yeah, he did that to me too, it was awful, da, 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 da. No, I have not heard of another one that has come forward to say that happened to them in a relationship. In fact, to the contrary, all of his past girlfriends have been like, he's amazing, he's wonderful. Like, I'm like, did you have a bad breakup? Like, the heck? Like,
now she like she sent a picture for evidence of him supposedly like after he had gone off on her and was drunk and asleep, and he was like, I was literally just asleep. Like.
Yeah.
This doesn't prove anything. Like, I was
Like,
asleep.
from a legal perspective, I don't know that he's going to win his lawsuit, but I think he won what he needed to win.
Yeah,
Which is
I mean,
public
he
opinion.
totally has. Like, there's been people who I didn't even think would support him that, like, I just know personally are like, yeah, no, she's full of crap. And then you have a lot of celebrities that are supporting him too. And unfortunately, in these situations, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But unfortunately, in these situations, men are not as believed as women. And
No.
that's not fair, because if we
No.
can believe it happened to us, it can happen to them too. And it has happened to them, whether it's, and we don't want to believe that a woman can do that to a man, but they can.
Absolutely.
They can, and they have.
Well, and the thing is, like, because it's such an imbalance of power, when you do have, a lot of times when you have a woman that will, I mean, you heard the recording that she made, which is who's going to believe you? Who's going to believe you? All that kind of stuff. And it's like, and that's the reality, is that guys won't, a good man won't fight back and then won't say anything because there's this embarrassment or fear of not being believed or anything like that. And it's like, I at the risk of saying not every man, which that's not what this is, but the reality is not every woman too is genuine in their,
right,
their complaints. So, I mean, I think that's why it's important.
I hate that too, because the disingenuous women who make these accusations make it look bad for those. And I unfortunately can say those of us who have genuinely had it. And, I saw my attacker a month ago.
You did.
And I didn't know how to feel. I hadn't seen him in years. I don't associate with the people he associates with. I don't do any of that. But when my friend passed, he's a part of a singing group that was near to her. And they sang at her memorial service. And thank God for some of my friends who were there who knew. One of them who didn't even know, she just texted me and was like, I feel like I need to come sit next to you right now. And she came and she sat next to me and she just held my hand really close. And then my other group mate, Deshandra, she held my hand really close. And then another friend texted me like, you okay? And I was like, I'm trying. I didn't feel as bad as I thought I was going to feel seeing him, because I was like super nervous. Like, just to tell you, I was like, so I'm going to see this person, and yeah, and I saw an ex, so that was a whole nother something. But it was hard. So for those of us who have had those situations, no matter how bad the situation was, when you're not genuine about it and you're just trying to take somebody down, it makes the rest of us look bad, because we're being honest, we're being genuine, we're really sharing our stories. And for you to just be like, yeah, that happened to me too, and you make up a whole big thing because you didn't like the way he did something, that's not cool.
No.
It's just not cool.
It betrays genuine victims, and it further victimizes those that have actually been harmed.
Yeah. And that can totally be another story for another day, but I'm definitely Team Johnny.
Team Johnny.
I'm definitely Team Johnny. And with all that being said, we hope that you make good decisions based on what you know. Do your research before signing positions. Do your research before even voting for someone. But at the end of the day, I feel like we all need to, and I know it's hard, especially in the last few years, but we need to have a lot more compassion for each other. No matter what your job position are, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's teaching, whether you're a CEO of a company, no matter what it is that you do or don't do, compassion is lacking right now in this season of life.
Hallelujah.
Just in general. There's a lot of anger, and I understand. And there's a lot of displaced anger. We are lashing out at people who don't deserve it. And we are making decisions based on our own thought, when we need to really, look into it. Now, I'm never going to tell you not to vote. I think politicians suck, but I'm not going to tell you not to vote, because I believe in the right to vote. People fought too hard for all of us to vote. Women of color, all of it.
Yeah.
We did not, we can't sit down on it. Too many people fought for the right. And so I'm not telling you not to vote. I'm telling you to do your research. I'm telling you to pray, before you make your decisions, and allow the Holy Spirit truly to guide you, because that's what it's there for, to guide in all situations. It is not just in regards to specific things. The Holy Spirit is there daily. I sent a video to Jessica the other day, had CC Winans, and she was basically saying, in essence, I would not survive if not for the Holy Spirit. And she's right. Even when
Absolutely.
I don't always make the best decisions, that decision would have been probably worse if the Holy Spirit wasn't keeping me from things, or if he wasn't telling me to do something, or he wasn't. And I know, talking about the Holy Spirit, people like, it sound like you're talking to a ghost. I'm not. It's Jesus. But
The attitude in that reply. I'm not. It's Jesus.
So there. But no, if it wasn't for the Holy Spirit, like, honestly, y'all think Christians are crazy now. Could you imagine us without the Holy Ghost? Girl. The things I have not said, the people I did not go off on, the decisions I did not make, the drinks I did not have. Those are all.
I mean, let's be real about it, but yeah.
All because for real, the Holy Spirit was like, don't do that.
Yeah.
What's that TikTok? Nope. Don't say that. That's yeah. So make informed decisions.
Yes.
By educating yourself, by learning, and also make decisions through prayer, because it's important. If you're not a believer, as always, we're like, hey, if you want to know some more about Jesus, hit us up. We are always willing to talk about it. And I promise you, we're not stuffy people. We will give you the real deal. It's not going to be a perfect life.
No.
Not at all. Because if it was, I would be struggling trying to figure out if Jesus will let me quit my job so I can work with Jessica full time.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Anyway. And on that note,
pray for us,
this
y'all.
has been another episode of We Digress with Joy and Jess. I am Joy. And
I am Jess.
That's Jess.
See, we did it on time that time.
We did. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't watched episode 1, go back and watch that. And if you haven't watched season 2 or season 1, go back and do that. And welcome to the team. We love having you here. And Jessica's going to spout out all our stuff so you can follow us.
That's right. You can hit us up. If you want to weigh in on the conversation, if you have thoughts that you need to share, you can send us an email at podcast@joyandjess.com. If you go to joyandjess.com, you can leave us a voice message and you can actually talk back to us and be like, you guys were 1,000% wrong and here's why. Or you can be like, yes, preach, testify, whatever it is that you have, go ahead and let us know. That's at joyandjess.com. If you want to catch us on Instagram, we are at We Digress with Joy_Jess. That's JOI, because that's how she spells her name. It's like rejoice, but it's joy. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. You could do all of those things. And and if you have suggestions for future podcast episodes, topics, you can let us know that there too. And definitely check out Joy's website. She mentioned her book, Beautified. You should check it out. It's an amazing book. I'm only a little bit biased, but it's incredible.
She's a lot biased.
I'm a lot biased, but I'm not. Truly and honestly, it's a great book. And,
thank you.
And I think that God's going to do a lot of wonderful things through it. So check it out, joysimpson.com, joysimpson.com. You can buy the book there. There's a link to the Amazon, both physical book and Kindle book. For that there. So check us out, joyandjess.com. Thanks for being with us today. We will catch you all on next time.
Thanks for listening. Check us out on the web at joyandjess.com. That's joyandjess.com. We'll see you next week.